Imagine living in a time where a poorly timed sneeze could literally get you executed. Seriously, no way out. Or picture being in the middle of a massive naval battle, and to guarantee your own survival, you intentionally sink your own ally's ship? We all love romanticizing the past, right? But the truth is, history was an unforgiving meat grinder.
Welcome to this explainer, where we're basically ripping away the fairy tales to look at the stark, pragmatic truth. History was definitely not a poem, guys. It was a brutal, high-stakes survival game. And honestly, surviving it required a level of pure ruthlessness that would break most of us before breakfast.
So let's start by dropping straight into the mud of feudal Japan. You can go ahead and forget the cherry blossoms and those cinematic sword fights. In this world, you didn't just wake up and choose your career path. You were handed a script the second you were born. And that role? It wasn't a friendly suggestion. It was a life sentence of absolute, crushing social control.
It was basically an inescapable trap. Say you're born a peasant? Well, you're spending the next 40 years ankle-deep in mud, completely terrified of the government-mandated race tax. What if you're a merchant? Sure, you had some coin, but society completely despised you because making a profit without physical labor was seen as super shady. And the legendary samurai? Well, they weren't exactly free agents. Think of them more like highly stressed middle management, just, with katanas. You didn't climb the social ladder here. You bowed to it.
Even just trying to stay clean was this agonizing ritual. Picture waking up in the dead of winter, right? And you have to wash your face in a stone basin filled with ice-cold well water. There was absolutely zero privacy in the communal bathhouses either. And if you were somehow lucky enough to actually afford soap, it was made from ash and rice bran. So yeah, it smelled a lot less like a relaxing spa day and a lot more like a monk's test of character.
And for the samurai, keeping up those appearances was literally life or death. They walked this incredibly thin tightrope governed by Bushido. I mean, disrespecting your lord, accidentally spilling some tea, or even just glancing sideways at the wrong person during a ceremony. That resulted in a truly horrifying exit strategy. You couldn't just apologize and walk off a mistake. You had to atone for it by kneeling down and using a short blade on your own intestines.
But, this intense fight for survival wasn't just happening in Japan. Let's pivot over to the Aegean Sea, right around 480 BCE. If you have this idea in your head that ancient women were all silent and subservient, you really need to meet Artemisia of Caria. She actually voluntarily commanded her very own warships for the notoriously ruthless Persian king Xerxes. Just picture the absolute chaos of the Battle of Salamis. The Persian fleet is completely collapsing, Greek ships are swarming everywhere, and Artemisia is being relentlessly chased down. So what does she do? In this split-second, incredibly cold-blooded decision, she orders her ship to ram and sink a Persian vessel. Yes, one of her own allies. The Greeks see this, assume she must be on their side, stop chasing her, and she just slips away completely untouched. The craziest part? King Xerxes watched the whole thing go down from a hilltop. But rather than execute her for treason on the spot, he actually gave her the highest praise. She managed to emerge from a catastrophic military defeat as his most trusted advisor. Why? Because she understood the ultimate rule of the era. Identity bends, but power remains. She outlasted the men around her by being utterly, unapologetically ruthless. Now, survival back then wasn't just about swords and sinking ships. It was also about mastering the environment itself. We tend to look back and view ancient peoples as primitives, just making wild guesses at the night sky. But the reality is actually mind-blowing. They turned crude stone into highly advanced cosmic calculators. Think about it. No telescopes, no satellites, just the naked eye, a ton of patience, and sheer mathematical brilliance. I mean, millennia before glass lenses were even a concept, these massive global breakthroughs were happening everywhere. The Sumerians invented the base 60 tracking system. That's literally the reason we have 60-minute hours today. The Babylonians were predicting lunar eclipses using nothing but pure arithmetic. And by 499 CE, the Indian astronomer Aryabhata was already proposing that the Earth rotates on its axis. For these ancient empires, mapping the sky wasn't just some fun hobby. It was the ultimate tool to legitimize their power and guarantee their survival. The Egyptians perfectly aligned the Great Pyramid with the stars. The Maya engineered El Castillo so that a shadow of a snake perfectly slithers down its steps right on the equinox. And Chinese emperors? They relied on massive celestial events, like a supernova in 1054, to actually prove their mandate of heaven. They didn't just watch the cosmos. They literally synchronized their empires to it so they could schedule harvests and maintain total control over their people.
Okay, let's fast forward a bit to 1803 America for the survival story of a young, fragile republic. We're all taught that the Louisiana Purchase was this glorious, heroic expansion of the frontier, right? Well, the truth is a bit messier. It was actually an accidental mega deal. It was born out of Napoleon's catastrophic military failures in Haiti and Thomas Jefferson's absolute desperation to secure the port of New Orleans.
The French completely blindsided the American diplomats. They offered up not just the port, but 828,000 square miles of territory for $15 million. To put that into perspective, that's roughly 4 cents an acre. It was this shocking, completely unexpected impulse buy that literally doubled the size of the United States overnight. And here is the ultimate irony of the whole thing. Thomas Jefferson was famous for being a strict constitutionalist, and nowhere, literally nowhere in the U.S. Constitution did it say the government had the power to just buy a foreign continent. But Jefferson bent the very rules he swore to protect. He essentially created a legal loophole because he felt the commercial destiny and the survival of the nation completely outweighed his own strict political philosophy. But we have to look at the facts here. That deal had a devastating hidden cost. This land wasn't empty. It was home to over 50 sovereign indigenous nations. So that famous Lewis and Clark expedition, it wasn't just innocent exploration. It was the starting gun for massive native dispossession and forced removal. Furthermore, it opened up vast new lands to plantation slavery, igniting a deep moral and political crisis that would eventually divide the nation. So, what's the big takeaway here? Well, history definitely isn't a fairy tale. It's a brutal, incredibly pragmatic survival game. Whether you were just trying to dodge execution in the mud of feudal Japan, sinking your own allies to escape the Aegean Sea, building giant stone observatories to legitimize your empire, or unconstitutionally carving out a brand new republic, survival always required a touch of ruthlessness. The past wasn't neat, and it certainly wasn't fair. It was raw, it was complex, and it was driven by some very hard, very cold calculations. So as we strip away all these romanticized stories we've been told for years, I want to leave you with one final thought. Now that the illusions are shattered, whose version of history are you really surviving?